please welcome the one and only Benji Razor Radach.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us on the show tonight, and we appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got a lot of things going on in your life and your career. We want to introduce you to the audience, who a lot of them may already know you because you've had so many tremendous fights on TV, but for the people who don't know you and want to get to know you, tell us a little bit about Benji Radach, the fighter, how you got into mixed martial arts, and what led you to be so passionate about the sport.
Well, I think it originates just from, I think some people are fighters, some people aren't, and I had that in me from day one. You know, I've always had the competitive spirit. I started racing dirt bikes at a young age of like 4 years old, so I kind of had a lot of fear thrown my way early in life, and then I got right into wrestling about age 4 and all the way through elementary school, middle school, high school, and then competed in the U.S. Nationals. I represented Washington State at the U.S. Nationals for like 3 years in a row, and then went right into fighting. My first fight was in Portland, Oregon. 1 15-minute round with a 5-minute overtime, which was pretty intense for your first fight, and it was back in 1999. So it was pretty gnarly. After that, I was kind of hooked. You know, it was one of those fights. It was back and forth and competitive, and ended up fighting a guy that was a really, really tough wrestler from North Idaho University, and it was a war. So it was one of those really, really tough fights, and then I came out on top and got the win, and so I just had all those great feelings that a lot of people don't experience till later in their fight career, and I was hooked. And so went from there and started training with Dan Henderson, Matt Lumen, Randy Couture before there was even a Team Quest at a gym called the Straight Glass Gym, and trained there with those guys for about a year, and then went up to Washington, farther up north in Washington, Olympia, Washington, and started training with Dennis Hallman and Jeff Munson and Ivan Salavari and the crowd up there, and that for about 5 years or so, and within 2 years from when I started, I got ready and had my first UFC fight, and off from there.
Yeah, you had a tremendous career leading up to that too. You had like 10 wins in a row before you got into UFC, so they obviously must have been pretty high on you at the time when you came in for UFC 37.
Yeah, it was. I had a lot of. In some ways, I got there a little too quick, so I didn't have all the self-confidence that I do now, and was kind of a little bit unsure of myself, and I of course didn't know all the things that I know now, and so that's just part of maturing as a fighter,
Yeah, and that fight turned out to be a little controversial because although it seemed that you got the win at the time by knockout in 27 seconds, the Athletic Commission later overturned that fight. And what were your thoughts on that when they ruled it a no contest?
Oh, that was just ridiculous. I think that was just somebody knowing somebody, I know him and, Steve Berger and his dad were pushing to appeal that, which made no sense because it was a perfect good win. I caught the guy with a big shot. I ground and pounded him. He rolls to my legs for what he thought was an ankle lock, but I had my knee on his like jawbone. I was pushing his head through the matting on the UFC padding floor. Had my knee right on his head, and so his head was like right on the wood basically. So every punch, there was no give in his head. It was like bonk, bonk. You could hear it right through the wood. So the ref seeing that and hearing it, and I was afraid that I was going to break my hand because there was no give in the punches. It was just like hitting like the concrete, donk, 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 and the ref stopped the fight, and he was wobbling, standing up, and it was a good call. So I was pretty upset when they actually overturned that. It made no sense.
Yeah, I believe the overturn was they claimed that you were grabbing hold of the fence at the time you were punching it. And
they said I was controlling the position by holding onto the fence when I was leaning against it because there's nothing else to lean against. And the referee never even said anything to me, like get your hand off the cage or anything like that. It was like so fast that it just made no sense. And then not to go back into bad news, but then I had my last fight with Scott Smith was they didn't overturn that, which I thought was insane because he guy caught me with a big shot. I went straight to my back, but then I was immediately reacting, getting up, and he hits me square in the back of the head, which is a legal punch, and then I'm just getting up as the referee stepping in and stopping the fight. So that's another one that should have been overturned that wasn't.
At the same time, I think viewers who saw that fight on the Shamrock versus Diaz card got a real treat. The decision probably should have gone your way and didn't, but at the same time, you and Scott Smith just slugged it out, and it was a tremendous fight to watch.
Yeah, it was a fun fight too, man. I really had a good time, and win or lose, it was just like one of those fights that I look back on and had a lot of fun in the whole fight. I broke my hand in the first round, and so going back to my corner after that first round, I was just like, oh man, this is going to be a long fight, and gutted it out for 2 more rounds, and kept throwing my right hand anyway, just because I didn't want him to sense that it was broke, and I later ended up having to get surgery. I had a metal plate and 7 screws put in my hand after the fight. So,
and that
was an awesome fight.
It was, and I want to congratulate you on having a great showing on Strikeforce, and hopefully it won't be the last one. It's been a little while since you've had a fight for Strikeforce, but maybe they've got something coming up for you in the near future here.
Yeah, hopefully. I just had another injury, which was a couple months ago. I tore my pec from the bone in my shoulder, just grappling. I had a weird, I did a pretty rugged workout in the morning, and so everything was pretty tight. And then that night, was scrapping and ended up tearing my pec from the bone. And it balled up in the center of my chest, so they had to go back in, pull it over, and drill holes in my arm and wire it back in. I feel like the bionic man.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I can't even begin to imagine how painful that is, let alone what it must be like to have a plate put in your body and hold everything together. And you've been through this quite a few times in your career. You've had a broken jaw, a herniated disc, a broken collarbone. What keeps you coming back when all these different things keep happening to you?
It's just, I think it just adds character, and you go through hardships, and you get tougher from everyone, and it seems like every time I have a bad injury, I come back with a lot more fire, and I'm definitely starting to learn about my body a little more, and resting when I need to, and I think sometimes I had this mentality from growing up and working hard and stuff as just to gut it out and work hard through everything, and I think sometimes your body can't hold up. I think my mind is stronger than my body, so I just stress it out to the max, and then it finally gives up,
Now, do you find that when you're in a fight that it's already that mental preparation that your mind is tougher than your body that enables you to come through? Like even when you said you broke your hand in the first round and you kept coming out and fighting, there's a lot of guys who would just, after they broke their hand, they would just have no heart and they would just give up in the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was an option. I could have, said screw it, and we both would have gotten, our show money. No one would have got their win money, and we wouldn't have been able to see the whole fight. And the rest of the fight was really cool, and I was still winning the fight on my feet, even though my hand was broke. So it turned out to be a great fight, and I'm glad that even though I ended up being a lose and a loss, on my record, I still am glad that I made the decision that I did and went through with fighting, and it was just, it was a great time. Good fight.
You've had a lot of great fights, in fact. You fought a who's who of people on your list. I mean, you fought Chris Levin, Ryan McGibbon, Brent Beauparlant, Flav Horowitz. I mean, the list goes on and on, but the one I want to talk to you about right now is you fought Murillo Ninja Hua at Elite XC, and that's just another case of you've been on TV quite a bit because you've been on Strikeforce, Elite XC, IFL. You've gotten a lot of TV exposure over the years, and I think that was some of your best because that was on CBS, and that was a pretty big win.
Yeah, that was a huge fight in my career. It was a big stepping stone, and I knew Ninja was going to be really tough. A lot of people said that he was training hard for that fight than any of his other fights, and I knew he was coming in shape and ready to go, and there was a lot of people watching that fight. I think there was like 6 million people that watched that night. And man, that was just it was an energetic, like adrenaline-filled fight just because he was pretty intimidating in your face, at weigh-ins. It had a lot of, I don't know what you could say, energy in that fight. And so much to where, like, a lot of technique went out the door as far as, like right when the bell rang, we ran across the ring and we just started slugging it out. Every punch was as hard as I could. Blew myself out that first round, and so I had to coast in the second round a little bit and kind of get my wind back as he was coming forward and throwing those flying knees, and I ended up catching him though at the very end.
Yeah, credit where credit's due. Even if you were gassed, you didn't show it. You managed to hang on and find your time and be able to take advantage when Murillo was not looking and get the KO and get the win, and it was a very big night for you on CBS.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, he came in and was throwing that flying knee, and I ended up throwing a left hook and caught him in the arm and put him on his back. And then I just had all that travel. I threw his legs out of the way, and I had that big right hand coming down, and we just set up the ground and pound there that finished it off. It was pretty cool.
Very impressive win, and definitely raised your profile in MMA. But then again, like I said, you've had many big fights. In fact, you got all the way to the World Grand Prix finals in the International Fight League where you fought Matt Suave Horowitz, and that's a very interesting, very colorful guy. He loves the Bible, he loves Jesus, and he loves fighting. It's a little bit hard to figure out sometimes, but it was a tremendous fight.
Yeah, that was a fun fight, and I've known Matt for a long time. I trained with him a bunch, and not taking anything from him. I was just when I fought him, I had fought 6 times that year. I just burned out a little bit, and I just didn't have the fire that I usually have. And going into that fight, he came forward. He was hungry, and took it to me, man, and kept that solid pace coming forward, and that zombie style that he has just keeps clinging on to you, and it takes a lot of energy out of you trying to defend shots and trying to defend the clinch and trying to punch him the whole time. But it was a fun fight. And just didn't get to win that time, but that was a good opportunity.
Now, do you think that was actually the downfall of the IFL, is that they had too many guys fighting too many fights in too short a time? Because it seemed like injuries just depleted the roster of every single team that they had.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, guys were fighting like crazy. I mean, 5-6 times a year. It was just a lot of fighting in a year for a guy fighting at pro level, and competitive guys, and some of the guys are top level dudes. You've seen a lot of the top IFL guys now in Strikeforce and UFC and doing well.
Right, and it seemed like just about the time they figured out their mistake and realized guys were fighting too many times, they ran out of money and lost their TV deal, and that was that.
Yep, that's it, man. I don't know what happened there, but the bottom end fell out somewhere. I'm not sure what happened, but
the bottom didn't fall out for you. I mean, you landed on your feet and wound up in Elite XC and then wound up in Strikeforce. So obviously, no skin off your back. You're the kind of guy that it's not the organization, it's the fight. You've been through so many different organizations that I don't even think we could count them all. I mean, you go all the way back to the second ever WEC card in MMA.
Yeah, that was one of my first pro fights. The WEC out in the Indian Casino. That was pretty awesome. One of my first knockouts. Royden, who was that? Royden D'Amata, I think it was.
That's correct.
I think so. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And they allowed knees to the head on the ground, and it was pretty wild.
Now, do you think that's actually a problem with the current rule set right now, the unified rules of mixed martial arts? Do you think there should be a change in the 3-point stand of knees to a grounded opponent?
Well, personally, I think that they should allow take elbows out. Not necessarily add knees or anything like that, but I think the Pride rules were even safer than the UFC rules. You know what I mean? Like, I think they should allow knees on the ground and stomps, to the body head, and take out elbows. I think guys are getting cut with elbows all the time. Getting stitches all over the place, and fights are ended too soon. Instead of allowing kicks and knees on the ground, which you never saw too many guys get finished with. I don't know, like trying to knee a guy in the head on the ground. Like, it didn't happen too much. Where fights would get stopped. And there's a lot more fights getting stopped as far as elbows go, and they're more dangerous. It's hard to get off of somebody on the ground and kick the guy in the head without him defending himself. You know what I mean? It's really hard. It's pretty awkward. I mean, I've trained doing that. I've fought in fights that you could allowed it. So it's pretty hard to get off of a guy when you're on top of him, stand up and soccer kick the guy when he's fighting you and defending against it all. You know, it's really easy to be on top of somebody and slip an elbow right down the center and cut somebody's face. It's just really easy, and it's like headbutting. You know, you like grab somebody and start headbutting them. It's like, yeah, so there's gonna be stitches, there's gonna be blood, and the fight's gonna get stopped.
Right.
So
I think that's one thing that all fight fans agree on is nobody really wants to see a fight stopped by a cut. I mean, if it's something where it's going to risk life and limb and it's a very bad idea to continue, obviously it should, but not on a simple just a little bit of blood coming out. I mean, everybody wants to see a fight finished definitively, whether it's a submission or a knockout or a TKO or whatever. They want to know that the fighter actually finished the fight and not the referee finishing the fight for them.
Exactly.
Which I think actually happened to you in your career with Sean Shirk. I believe you got stopped on a TKO for a cut, and I'm sure you're not happy about that.
Yeah, it was kind of a bummer. I was ready to go on. I was cut. It went in my eyes at first. You know what I mean? Like I was on my back and blood was like spider webbed on my face. You know, he just threw an elbow right over the top and cut me. It didn't hurt me physically or mentally. It just put like a bunch of blood in my eyes. So they stopped the fight. They cleaned the blood up. I said, I'm okay. I said, I just couldn't see it for a second. The first time the first time I learned not to say, you know, anything about your vision when you get cut, because all I said is I just couldn't see for a second. That's all I said to the guy. He's like, oh, fight's over. And it's like, I couldn't see for a second. I'm fine now. Like, I'm totally fine. Like, I'm not hurt visually or mentally. I'm ready to go. And then I think it was pretty new in the MMA game. So the referee he heard that and just jumped in, stopped it, no questions asked.
Right, and I think that's actually become a code word for a lot of fights to be stopped. So it's a total accident on your part, because some fighters just, when they don't want to fight anymore, they'll say they can't see, and so a ref may have interpreted that incorrectly in your case.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
But at least that didn't stop your career. You went on. You've had many more fights over the last 8 years since that fight, and I'm sure that if you fought Sean Shirk again, it'd be probably a completely different story now, because Shirk is trying to box with everybody instead of using his wrestling base, and if he got in a slugfest with you now, it might not turn out so well.
Yeah, well, you know, I weigh like quite a bit more than him now too, so you know,
yeah, that's true. He'd have to come up and wait to meet you, but you know.
Yeah, he'd have to start eating some pork chops
or something. But you're obviously a very fit guy at 185. I mean, it really doesn't seem to be an ounce of fat on you. I think that LA boxing training and instructing you do has a lot to do with that. So tell us a little bit about LA boxing.
Well, LA boxing, I started working for them a couple of years ago as the director of instructor training. And so I train all the instructors for all our gyms. We have almost 60 gyms now across the nation in Puerto Rico. And I teach all the instructors to teach our group classes, which kind of got to be, you know, taught a certain way, have a certain format in order to stay, non-repetitious, or, they can get pretty raw if you let, certain fighters, some of the fighters, they think they got to train these members like they got to train fighters. Well, it's not that case. You know, you have soccer moms in our LA boxing gyms, and guys who've never gotten a fight in their life. They don't really want to become a fighter, but they want to get in great shape and do it in a fun, safe environment and in a non-boring process. So that's my job. Is I just keep this format going, and I try to keep it in everybody's face and all the instructors' faces, and give them tips and ab work and ideas and stuff like that to help LA boxing stay on top, and and our product the same across the board.
Yeah, it seems like LA boxing is growing and expanding tremendously, and I'm hoping that at some point they'll have one out here in the Midwest. I mean, maybe they already do, and I just haven't found it yet, but it seems to me it's growing very fast, and if you're providing the instruction for all the guys that in turn provide the instruction, that'll keep a consistency of quality across all the gyms across the country.
Yeah, it's tough, man. We've got gyms all over the place now, man. We got some in Colorado, and we got some in Oklahoma now. I think we're going to have two at some point there. We
sounds like they're flying one out here right now. There's a plane going overhead. Maybe there's one here right now.
Here it comes.
Yeah, indeed. So, yeah, Oklahoma, they're getting pretty close. They're getting into my neck of the woods, so to speak, so a little further north, and we'll be there. And you say that they work to keep things non-boring and very exciting for everybody from soccer moms to professional athletes. And it's funny you should mention that, because there's a very non-boring thing you're doing with LA Boxing right now, where you and a professional bull rider are trading places and seeing whose sport is the toughest.
That's right. That's another little step that we're taking, and hopefully we can, keep pushing this idea. And the video that we got from this whole, at the beginning, this whole project for the bull rider was going to be just a viral video that we can market LA Boxing and push it out there, maybe get it on some professional bull riding websites and cross some paths with people that have never seen LA Boxing before, and kind of hit a different demographic. And it turned into something a little more than that. We started playing with it, and the videos from the whole trip and from everything was so good, and we added to it a bunch, and we're going to try to make a reality TV show out of it and pitch it to a bunch of networks. So we have 2 or 3 teasers leading up to the final project, which will be done on June 1st. And from there, we'll start pitching it to the networks and hopefully, something bites. But it's a pretty cool concept. Basically, I'll trade spots. The first episode was the bull rider, so I traded spots with the bull rider. He ends up having his first fight. I help him get ready for the fight, wrap his hands, and then he fights. The next morning, I go and jump on this little burning barrel, basically, on springs, and I have a couple guys, shaking the back end, trying to teach me how to hold on to the wrap correctly, and not get my hips moving right and my shoulders, and keep my hand a certain way, and it's a total technique. And then they're like, well, that's all fun and fine and dandy that you're learning how to do that, but the really only way to learn how to ride a bull is by jumping on it and actually doing it. So the next step was jumping on the bull, and I jumped on a 2,000-pound bull and rode it. So it was a really cool experience. The whole trip was awesome, and then I came back home and did a bunch of green screen for the pilot, and now we'll see here June 1st. Hopefully we can pitch it and somebody grabs it and we can create some more work.
Of course, we don't want any spoilers before June 1st, because I'm sure we're all going to want to see that video, whether it's just on YouTube or whether it lands on a network like Spike TV. But just in a non-spoiler way, tell us whether you think that Victor Pena really knew what he was getting into when he got into mixed martial arts, or whether you had any idea what it was going to be like on a 2,000-pound bull.
Honestly, they're both really tough, and they're both very, very tough as far as, just having the balls to get in there and do it. And for both of us, we were both scared out of our minds. Like he was tripping, nervous, really, full of all these nerves and crazy feelings, and that's the same way I felt. I hadn't had that much adrenaline go through me in a long time. He's used to jumping on these bulls every day. I'm used to jumping in a cage and fighting another human being. So us getting out of our comfort zone and going to these new sports was just crazy. It was like jumping in the ring my first time, or in the cage my first time, or on the wrestling mat my very first time, except a little more because you got this huge animal underneath you. But, his thoughts afterward were, my sport's tougher, and my thoughts afterwards was, his sport's tougher. I think his is more tougher as far as danger goes. I mean, guys die all the time on those bulls. I mean, whatever those things land on, they're squishing, breaking. They're 2,000 pounds. So whatever they end up landing on, they're just, killing. So in his case, you're fighting another opponent that knows how to put a lot of pain and harm on yourself. But as far as death goes, the bulls got me.
And I don't think anybody's getting squished on weight alone in MMA, except maybe by butterbean.
Exactly.
In your estimation, then, they're both very tough sports, and you're obviously, hanging in there with mentally tough guys in the cage, and fighters, all mentally tough and physically tough, and bulls are mentally and physically tough too, and a lot of people don't realize that. They think it's just a dumb animal, but these animals are trained in their own way just to be able to buck riders off. So
they're really tough, and I've got a lot of comments on people thinking that it's all cruel and inhumane and that they get tortured and all this crazy stuff. Well, I mean, these bulls are so tough, and they're they don't even know you're on its back hardly. I mean, they just toss you, and I mean they don't there's no like pain you can see in the bulls at all. I mean, they're just covered nails. You know, whenever they want you off, they just throw you, pretty much. Whenever it decided to turn a corner, I was like flying, like I don't know, like 20 feet, landing on my head. It was pretty nuts.
Something we're all going to look forward to seeing. We'll just hope that he didn't get seriously injured in the filming of this, because we want to see you back in the cage too, not just on top of a pole.
Yeah, it was a cool experience, man, and something that I would definitely do again. I don't know if I'd ever do it as a sport, because it's definitely really dangerous. In fact, the guy that did the bull ride with me, he just got his face broke in Mexico. He was riding a bull, and he got bucked forward, and the bull came up with his head and smashed his face against the bull's head. So I guess it broke his facial, got a bunch of facial fractures, and broke his nose as well. So pretty gnarly.
Never let anybody say that bull riding isn't a serious sport after hearing this conversation, because whether you get your face broken in MMA or whether you get it broken in bull riding, it's going to hurt either way. So
it is gnarly for sure.
Yeah, it's no joke. Just like you're no joke in the cage. So we want to give you a chance before we let you go to plug your next projects, anything big coming up, and if you got a fight scheduled, let everybody know when and where they can tune in and see it, and if not, when we can look forward to seeing more from you.
Well, nothing right now. Just everybody go buy my Tap Out T-shirt, tapout.com. It shows the actual the deal with the robbery, the gun robber that came in the restaurant where I was eating it. I snuck up and took the gun from the guy and knocked the dude out and took his gun from him.
Forgot to ask you about that before now.
Yeah.
You make quite a lot of newspapers and headlines with that story.
The whole Tap Out T-shirt thing is based off of the whole story. So the background of the shirt is the actual newspaper clipping that was used in the robbery, and some of my quotes and stuff is on the shirt as well. But it turned out pretty cool, and so they're selling that at tapout.com, and a little piece of that comes to me for representing Tap Out in the sport. So pretty cool. So I want people to know about tapout.com and go buy my T-shirt. Look for me in probably November, December to be coming back in the cage and fighting. That's the projected time of my arrival. I'll be back and healed up and ready to go.
Is there any particular opponent you're looking for in your next fight, or just whoever you get sent your way by Strike Forces or whoever it is, you'll just take them on? That's
it, man. Whoever Strike Force thinks that they need to send my way, I'm pretty much ready for whoever, and I will be by this winter. I'll be in great shape and strong and ready to go and on point. So I also want to thank Metal Militia and Rockstar Energy Drink. They've been a big help, especially while I've been down and out, going through the last year of injuries. Hopefully I can now pay them back and get a big win here in this winter.
Absolutely, and to stay in great shape, you work with LA Boxing and train at LA Boxing, and everybody should check out LABoxing.com to see the video and find out more about it, correct? That's right,
LABoxing.com.
Thank you very much, Benji. We really appreciate it, and have a great evening.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
And that was Benji Razor Radach, a famous MMA fighter everybody knows from his fights on CBS and Strike Force and Elite XC and the International Fight League and many more organizations around the world. We very much appreciate him taking the time today to be with us and talk about his fighting and his bull riding and his venture into other sports. And everybody should go to LABoxing.com and look for that YouTube video of him riding a bull and see what it's all about and see whose sport is tougher, MMA or bull riding. But according to him, they're both really tough.